The morning sun filtered through the thin hospital curtains of Children's Medical Center in Dallas, Texas, casting gentle shadows across the sterile white walls of room 304. 8-year-old Marcus Thompson lay propped up against his pillows, his Lakers jersey, a size too big for his small frame, draped over his shoulders like a cape. The jersey bore the number 34, and even though it had been washed countless times, it still held the faint scent of the fabric softener his mom used at home. "Tell me again about when Shaq dunked so hard he broke the whole backboard," Marcus whispered to his father, David, who sat in the uncomfortable vinyl chair that had become his second home over the past 6 months. David's weathered hands smoothed over his son's bald head, a consequence of the chemotherapy that had stolen Marcus's thick curls but couldn't touch his infectious spirit. "Well, son, it was 1993, and Shaq was playing for the Orlando Magic." As David recounted the legendary moment for what must have been the 100th time, Marcus's eyes lit up with the same wonder as always. Despite the IV line snaking from his small arm and the constant hum of medical equipment, the boy's imagination transported him to those courts where his hero once dominated. Dr. Patricia Williams entered the room during her evening rounds, her soft-soled shoes barely making a sound on the polished floor. She had been Marcus's oncologist since his diagnosis with acute lymphoblastic leukemia, and in those months, she had watched this brave little boy fight battles that would challenge grown men. "How's our Lakers fan doing today?" she asked, checking his chart with practiced efficiency while maintaining the warm smile that had comforted hundreds of families. "Dr. Williams, do you think Shaq knows about kids like me?" Marcus asked, his voice carrying that innocent curiosity that made even the most hardened medical professionals pause. The question hung in the air like morning mist. Dr. Williams had learned that sometimes the most profound questions came from the smallest patients. "You know what, Marcus? I think people like Shaq became great, not just because of their talent, but because they have big hearts too. And big hearts always know when someone needs them." Marcus nodded solemnly, processing this wisdom with the seriousness that childhood illness often brings. Outside his window, the lights of Dallas began to twinkle as evening approached, and somewhere in that vast city, a story was about to begin that would touch more lives than anyone could imagine. That night, as Marcus drifted off to sleep clutching a worn Shaquille O'Neal trading card, his mother Sarah sat by his bedside, quietly typing on her phone. She had joined a support group for parents of children with cancer, and tonight she felt compelled to share her son's story. Her fingers trembled slightly as she wrote about Marcus's unwavering admiration for Shaq, his dreams of meeting his hero, and how those dreams kept him fighting through the toughest days. She never expected anyone beyond their small circle to read those words. She never imagined that within hours her post would be shared by dozens, then hundreds, then thousands of people who were moved by one little boy's simple wish. The city of Dallas slept that night, unaware that a chain of events was already in motion, events that would prove that sometimes the most extraordinary things happen to the most ordinary people. 3 days later, Sarah's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. What had started as a simple post in a support group had somehow found its way across social media platforms, gathering momentum like a snowball rolling down a hill. Local news stations had picked up the story, and the Marcus and Shaq was trending on Twitter. "Mom, why are all these people calling?" Marcus asked from his hospital bed, watching his mother juggle phone calls while trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in their disrupted world. "They read about you, sweetheart, about how much you love Shaq," Sarah explained, still not quite believing the response herself. "People want to help make something special happen." The attention was overwhelming but heartwarming. The Dallas Mavericks had reached out, offering courtside seats to their next game. Local businesses wanted to donate gifts. But it was the message from a sports journalist named Michael Rodriguez that made Sarah's hands shake as she read it. "Mrs. Thompson, I've been following Marcus's story. I have some connections in the NBA, and I'd like to see if we can reach Shaquille O'Neal directly. No promises, but every child deserves to dream. And sometimes dreams need a little help finding their way. Meanwhile, in his luxury home in Los Angeles, Shaquille O'Neal was scrolling through his social media after a late-night recording session for his podcast. The 7'1" gentle giant, now 53 years old, had always made it a point to stay connected with his fans, especially the younger ones. When Michael Rodriguez's message appeared in his DMs, accompanied by Marcus's story and photo, Shaq stopped scrolling. The image showed a small boy in an oversized Lakers jersey, his bald head shining under hospital lights, holding up a Shaq Attack poster with a smile that could power a small city. Shaq read every word of the story twice, his own eyes misting over as he absorbed the details of Marcus's battle and his unwavering spirit. Shaq had received thousands of requests over the years, appearances, endorsements, charity events, but something about Marcus's story cut through all the noise. Maybe it was the boy's genuine love for basketball, or perhaps it was the reminder of his own childhood, when heroes seemed larger than life, and meeting them felt like touching magic itself. Without hesitation, Shaq picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Nicole, I need you to clear my schedule for tomorrow. I'm going to Dallas." "For the charity gala?" Nicole asked, confused as she flipped through his calendar. "No, for a little boy who needs to know that giants can have hearts too." Back in Dallas, as the evening news featured Marcus's story, the young boy watched from his hospital bed with wonder. The reporter was standing outside Children's Medical Center, explaining how social media had amplified one family's hope into a citywide movement of support. "Marcus, you're famous," his father said, though his voice carried a mixture of pride and concern about the sudden attention their private struggle was receiving. But Marcus wasn't thinking about fame. As he watched people he'd never met hold signs with his name and Shaq's number, he felt something he hadn't experienced since his diagnosis: the warm certainty that miracles, while rare, weren't impossible. That night, neither Marcus nor his family slept much. They were too busy reading messages of support from around the world, too amazed by the kindness of strangers, and too hopeful about what tomorrow might bring. 300 miles away, Shaquille O'Neal was also awake, making arrangements that would soon turn a young boy's hospital room into the center of an unforgettable universe. The morning of October 15th started like any other at Children's Medical Center. Nurses made their rounds, doctors checked on patients, and the familiar sounds of medical equipment provided a steady rhythm to the day. Marcus was having his blood drawn, a routine that had become as normal as brushing his teeth, when his mother noticed unusual activity in the hallway. "There are a lot of people out there today," Sarah observed, peering through the small window in Marcus's door. Security guards were positioned at various points, and she could see staff members whispering excitedly among themselves. Dr. Williams entered the room with barely contained excitement. "Marcus, I need you to sit down for this. Well, you're already sitting, but you might want to hold on to something." Before she could continue, the hallway erupted with barely suppressed commotion. Through the small window, Marcus could see a crowd of hospital staff gathering, phones out, all facing the same direction down the corridor. "What's happening, Dr. Williams?" Marcus asked, his voice a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Well, Marcus, sometimes when you wish upon a star, that star turns out to be about 7 feet tall and have very large shoes." The door to room 304 opened slowly, and Marcus's world suddenly became the size of a keyhole as he tried to process what he was seeing. First came the shoes, massive basketball sneakers that seemed to announce their owner before he appeared. Then came the legs, so long they seemed to go on forever, followed by a torso that filled the entire doorframe. And then Shaquille O'Neal stepped into the room. Marcus's mouth opened, but no sound came out. His trading card, the one he'd been holding when he fell asleep, slipped from his fingers and fluttered to the floor. Time seemed to suspend itself in that sterile hospital room as the man who had dominated basketball courts around the world carefully folded his massive frame to get through the doorway. "Hey there, young king," Shaq said, his voice warm and gentle, a stark contrast to the booming presence that had intimidated opponents for decades. "I heard there was a Lakers fan in here who knows more about my career than I do." Sarah burst into tears. David's hands covered his face as his shoulders shook. But Marcus, after several seconds of stunned silence, found his voice. You're really here, in my room. This is my room, and you're in it. Shaq's laugh filled the space like sunshine breaking through clouds. I am definitely here, little man. And I brought some friends. He gestured behind him, and into the room came a parade of surprises. Teammates from his playing days via video calls on tablets, a photographer to capture every moment, and several large bags that clearly contained presents. But it was what Shaq did next that would be remembered forever. He didn't just visit Marcus, he transformed the sterile hospital room into his personal basketball court. He sat on the edge of the bed, carefully mindful of the medical equipment, and began asking Marcus about his favorite games, his knowledge of basketball statistics, and his own dreams beyond the hospital walls. You know what, Marcus? Shaq said, pulling out an official Lakers jersey with Marcus's name on the back. This jersey is special. It's not just any jersey, it's got championship energy in it. Every time you wear it, you're gonna feel like you can dunk on anybody. Marcus held the jersey against his small chest, and for a moment, he looked exactly like what he was. An 8-year-old boy whose wildest dream had just walked through his door. Mr. Shaq, Marcus said quietly, can I ask you something? Anything, little king. Does it hurt when you dunk really hard? Shaq considered the question with the seriousness it deserved. You know what hurts more than any dunk? Giving up. And from what I hear, you're too tough to ever do that. The visit lasted 3 hours. 3 hours of laughter, stories, photos, and moments that would be treasured for a lifetime. Hospital staff gathered in the hallway, many wiping away tears as they watched one of basketball's greatest legends treat a young patient like the most important person in the world. As the afternoon wound down, Shaq had one more. Surprise. Marcus, I want you to promise me something. Promise me you'll keep fighting like the champion you are. And when you get better, not if, when, you come find me, and we'll shoot some hoops together. Deal? Marcus nodded, too overwhelmed to speak, and extended his small hand to shake Shaq's enormous one. The video of Shaq's visit, carefully shared with the family's permission, spread across the internet like wildfire. Within 24 hours, it had been viewed millions of times. News outlets from CNN to ESPN featured the story. International media picked it up. Shaq's heart began trending worldwide. But the real magic wasn't in the viral fame. It was in what happened next. In hospitals across America, children fighting their own battles found hope in Marcus's story. Parent support groups shared the video as proof that kindness still existed in the world. Athletes from various sports began reaching out to their local children's hospitals, inspired by Shaq's example. We've had 17 different professional athletes contact us this week wanting to visit patients, Dr. Williams told Sarah during one of Marcus's follow-up appointments. Your son started something beautiful. Marcus's own progress had been remarkable. Whether it was coincidence, improved spirits, or the power of feeling truly seen and valued, his response to treatment had exceeded everyone's expectations. His appetite had returned, his energy levels were climbing, and most importantly, his smile, that radiant, infectious smile, was back in full force. Mom, look at this one, Marcus said, scrolling through messages on a tablet Shaq had given him. This girl in Australia says Shaq's visit to me made her feel brave for her surgery. And this boy in Japan wants to meet his hero too, and his parents are trying to make it happen. Sarah watched her son read message after message from children and families around the world who had been touched by his story. What had started as one mother's desperate hope in a support group had become a global reminder of the power of compassion. 3 months later, Marcus walked out of Children's Medical Center for the final time as a patient. His hair was growing back in soft curls, his energy was boundless, and clutched in his hands was a basketball signed by every member of Shaq's championship teams. But the story didn't end there. True to his word, Shaq invited Marcus to Los Angeles for a private workout session. The video of Marcus, healthy, strong, and full of life, sinking shot after shot on Shaq's personal court, while the big man cheered him on became another viral sensation. "You see that, world?" Shaq called out in the video as Marcus made a perfect free throw. "I told you this young king was a champion." The Shaq and Marcus Foundation was established 6 months later, dedicated to connecting professional athletes with children facing serious illnesses. The foundation's motto, suggested by Marcus himself, was simple: "Giants have hearts." During the foundation's first fundraising gala, Shaq stood before a crowd of celebrities, athletes, and philanthropists. But his attention was focused on a young boy in the front row, Marcus, now healthy and strong, wearing his championship jersey. "A year ago, I met a little boy who taught me something I thought I already knew," Shaq said, his voice carrying across the silent ballroom. "I thought I knew about being big. I thought I knew about being strong. But Marcus showed me that the biggest thing you can be is kind, and the strongest thing you can do is care about someone else's dream." He paused, looking directly at Marcus. This young man didn't just fight cancer. He fought it with such grace and courage that he inspired a giant like me to be better. And if a kid in a hospital bed can move mountains, imagine what we can do together. The standing ovation lasted 5 minutes, but the impact of that night, and Marcus's story, would last much longer. Today, Marcus is 11 years old, cancer-free, and the youngest ambassador for the Shaq and Marcus Foundation. He still wears his Lakers jersey, though he's graduated to a size that actually fits. He still loves basketball, but more than that, he loves the feeling of helping other kids find their own giants, their own heroes who prove that the biggest hearts often come in the largest packages. And sometimes, late at night, when he's drifting off to sleep, Marcus still can't quite believe that his simple dream led to something so much bigger than he ever imagined. But then he remembers Shaq's words from that magical day in room 304. "The biggest dreams are just the ones that haven't found their wings yet." In Marcus's case, those wings turned out to be 7 feet tall, wore size 23 shoes, and had a heart even bigger than their legendary hands. The morale of Marcus's story spread far beyond social media and news headlines. It became a reminder that in a world that often feels divided and disconnected, the simple act of caring, really, truly caring, about another person's dreams can create ripples of kindness that touch lives across the globe. Because sometimes, the most extraordinary magic happens when giants remember they have hearts, and small dreamers remember they have wings.